Hi everyone, Laura Renner here, the founder of Freedom Makers, coming to you live today. Looks like Charlie the cat is going to be joining us on this call, or this live. Today we want to continue our conversation from a couple weeks ago about priorities. That seemed to be a popular topic, and I thought we'd spend more time today actually diving into how do you prioritize your life, your day. And of course, we'd love to hear what you do to prioritize and fit everything in. And so please feel free to share in the comments, and then we can discuss them while we're live right now. So one of the things I want to start with is one of my favorite quotes or phrases or meme or whatever is when someone tells you they don't have the time, what they're saying is that it's not a priority. And so I tend to try to look at prioritizing in that way, or about what do I have time for? What am I willing to dedicate time to? And related to that is I always say that time is different from energy, right? And so you have to think about what am I willing to dedicate energy toward? The example I like to give is cooking versus washing dishes. If in the example, we assume that whatever meal we're going to cook takes a half hour, and then washing the dishes afterward will also take a half hour. Think about which one you enjoy more, and think about, so they both take the same amount of time, but one of them is going to take less energy than the other because that's the one you enjoy the most. So when you think about prioritizing, think about it in the context of what am I willing to set aside time for, and therefore what am I willing to put energy toward. And so that's just kind of like the, I don't know, rule of thumb or whatever for how I like to think about prioritizing. So please start sharing in the comments ways that you prioritize your life or your day. I just shared mine about what am I willing to dedicate energy toward. And once I recognize that it's something I'm willing to dedicate energy toward, then I figure out how to work it in my time. No, we won't come do your dishes. We're virtual. Unless you can wash dishes virtually, then we'll come do your dishes. We can mail you new paper plates every week. So anyway, here's an example. So one of our Freedom Makers, her name is Jenny. She's very disciplined around time, and she's got 2 kids in school, one in junior high and one in high school. And so she gets up at 5 o'clock every morning in order to get work done before her kids get up. So she punches out a lot of work, gets it all done, and then gets her kids to school. And then I believe she goes and works out after the kids are at school or something like that. So that's how she fits in her priorities of her time. Me personally, I'm not so good at, well, I shouldn't say that. My thing is I'm very productive in the mornings. It took me a long time to figure that out, and I'm very productive in the mornings. So I try not to schedule anything in the mornings. I don't work out. I don't have meetings or calls. And that way I get a bunch of work done. And then after lunch, I'll go do my workout or have meetings and things like that. And so that's how I tend to prioritize my day in that regard, is because my mornings I'm quite productive, I tend to safeguard them zealously so that that time is protected for me to get work done. And so I'd say that's another way about prioritizing, is once you figure out what you're willing to dedicate energy toward, then you got to make time for it, because then it gets it out of the way and they don't have time to come up with excuses. Oh, I'm too tired, I'm hungry. You wake up, you work out, boom, you're done. I know a friend likes to do that. And so figuring out your priorities, and then by deciding what you want to dedicate energy toward, and then making time for that. Especially as business owners, we run that risk all the time of doing our business all the time. And then when you do that, like we talked about last time, then you run yourself ragged. And even if you don't own a business, if you're an employee, I've seen that happen too. I've seen, oh, Charlie's digging his claws into my leg. I've seen that happen too, where, you know, I have a friend who's working like 11-hour days because she's so dedicated to the work she's doing, but then she's drained. She comes home and she's not working out, or she's not eating well because she's so drained. So she just comes home and veges out. And so by taking care of yourself, then you're able to do a better job in your job or in your business. But then how do you create time for that? And so as another example I want to share, or story, is my family lives abroad, and there was once where I was visiting them. And so the nice thing about living abroad is that after the kids would go to sleep, I would work, and that would be daytime here, business hours here, so I could still continue working while I was visiting my family. The downside was there was one day where I had a call, and it was, like I said, daytime here, but it was actually during dinner time with my family. And so then I felt really guilty because I was missing dinner time with my nephews and my family. At the same time, when I'm playing with my nephews, I was feeling guilty for not working. And I mentioned that to my coach at the time, and she talked about this. Part of the struggle, I think, with prioritizing is we always feel guilty. We always feel like we should be doing something we're not. So if we're working too much, we feel like we should be eating better or working out. Or if we're not working enough, or we're not spending time with our family, then we feel guilty about that. Like, that's a classic example. When I was playing with my nephews, I felt guilty about not working. When I was working, I felt guilty about not spending time with my family. So part of prioritizing, when you're able to prioritize, you're able to let go of that guilt. Or it could be vice versa, where by letting go of that guilt, you're able to prioritize. It's kind of like a virtuous circle. And so if you choose, okay, I'm going to work out at 7 a.m. every morning, then you got to let go of the guilt about not working on your business, or about if you have kids, not being the one to take your kids to school, or whatever it is. Like, whatever you decide to prioritize and how to prioritize, part of that is then letting go of that guilt around the other things you're choosing not to do in that time. And so then that also contributes to the health of you and the health of your business. Let's see. Wow. Sorry, Charlie keeps digging his claws into my leg. Let's see, what did Madeline have to say? When I wrote out my daily plan the night before, I was really productive and was able to figure out what exactly I needed to prioritize each day. Some days email was a priority. Other days it was a new presentation. Another time it was training my team. That is a great idea, Madeline. If you write it out the night before, then you have time to think about it, but also you get up in the morning and you just start going. And the priorities are going to change every day. Like she said, it might be email, it might be a project, it might be managing your team. They could vary each day, but by deciding on the plan the night before, you're able to just wake up and take action rather than thinking about it. I think thinking is half the problem most of the time. All right, well, if anyone else wants to add tips, now's the time to do it, to share. Let's see, morning routines are a good way to good thing to share as well. But I think the key thing also, and we talked about it in our blog, is even if you aren't feeling like you're prioritizing, or you're struggling with feeling constantly behind or guilty that you're not doing enough of what you should be doing, start with one thing. And no matter how small it is, just start with that one thing. Make time and energy for that one thing. And then once that becomes a habit, then add another thing and another thing. So it might be that one thing is, I'm going to be there when my kids come home from school every day. And so I'm not going to schedule any meetings during that time. And so then put that in your calendar, block it, make it a rule, give yourself a few weeks so that you feel comfortable enforcing that rule with your clients and with your team, and then let go of the guilt and get that into place. That reminds me of a story. One of our clients, she's very adamant, she's an attorney, and she's very adamant about spending time with her boys. And so she will not work when they are on like spring break or something like that. And she will put it in her out of office reply. I'm spending spring break with my boys. I will respond when I return on such and such date. And I just thought that was awesome. I love that she did that. And so that's an idea there. Like, you can, once you make that rule as a priority, for example, being home when your kids come home from school every day, then it becomes standard, and it's not something you feel guilty about after you've built that habit in place. So once you feel better about that one, move on to your next thing. For me, I'm only going to have ice cream on weekends. That might be my new priority that I'm working on. And once that feels set in stone, then I'll start on the next priority. And so that's the key, is start small with what you want to make a priority in your life, and make time for it, dedicate energy to it. And once it becomes natural or normal, then move on to the next thing. Especially as business owners, we can make whatever rules we want about how we run our business and how we run our lives. And so don't, or work on not feeling guilty or feeling pressured that you have to do something because that's what is expected of you. Like I said, that one of our clients who's out of office is, it's my boy's spring break, we're out. I love it. And she, I don't know, maybe I should ask her how she felt about making that a priority, and does she feel pressure about saying it or doing it. But I just love that she's upfront about it and she's honest about it, and that's what she's doing. You got to respect her for it. So I would say, there's that adage, entrepreneurs refuse to work a 40-hour, or entrepreneurs work an 80-hour week in order to avoid working a 40-hour week. And that's true. We start our businesses because we want freedom. And so I would say use that freedom to your advantage, and your power to do what you want to do, to make what you want to make a priority in your life, and forget about society's rules and do what you want to do. All right. I feel like that was a bit more meandering than I normally do, but I hope that was helpful. And feel free to share how you prioritize your day, because I know we could all use tips on what to do and how to let go of that guilt when we feel like we should be prioritizing something we're not. And so please share that. And even if it's one of those middle finger emojis to what we don't want to do, like screw them, I'm going to do what I want to do kind of thing, that's totally fine too. I hope you're well, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye. Ouch, Charlie.